Greetings again. This is your host, Dat Work. I'm going to continue this series to address all the problems and issues I've perceived and others have talked about as far as the school district here in Larimer County and Fort Collins, Colorado. We are faced with an obvious dilemma that exists here, and it is a dilemma that most people either want to hide their faces in the sand and stay in their silos and pretend like the things that are actually happening in this community are not based in reality. I've had numerous conversations with teachers, administrators, since my own son started in the school district in kindergarten. I was faced with my son in the first month and a half of him being in a charter school here that no longer exists in kindergarten, where they were trying to label him as a problem. And this same trope that continues for most black men, young black men in this community, starts that early. I've consistently gone to the schools in reference to forms of microaggressions from teachers, racist tropes, racist peers, and situations that are not based in paranoia but in reality. And this has been going on again since kindergarten. My son is now 15 and a sophomore here in a school that still cannot recognize his passion for himself, his culture, his ethnicity, his history, and his defiance based in resilience against consistent forms of racism that he has experienced personally and systematic microaggressions and ideas about who he is. What I will never do is allow this school district to suggest that my son has behavior problems or is negative. And those are the last two terms that have been assigned to my son based on foolishness. Here's the first thing I'll say: as adults, we have to do better about how we think punitive forms of punishment work. And if our objective as administrators, guardians of these young people, is not to work with every student in order to build them up, then we don't need to be doing the work we claim that we were asked to do or even paid to do. So I'm going to continue this series until I get a reply from PSD, because when we come back from this Thanksgiving break, I will be addressing all of this. I will present the data publicly, what is actually happening in this school district to young black students, so people don't think I am just talking without any form of information or analysis that has been drawn out from the data that is clear. So I'm a little bit over having these conversations, but I'm going to continue doing it until the work is done. And that's my job as well. So black boys do not need extraordinary resilience. What they need simply is ordinary fairness. This is what I've been expressing to people. They do not need to fit in. They need to belong. They do not need to mask their culture. What the school needs to do is expand its definition of what normal is. And these are things I'm addressing. They do not need saviors. They need educators who dismantle the conditions that produce the harm that they face. They do not need what we want to call strict discipline to be safe. They need relational accountability that sees their humanity. They do not need lower expectations for protection. They need high expectations free from your own bias. They do not need temporary diversity initiatives. They need structural change sustained by courageous leaders I hope exist in this community. And why does this matter so much? Schools often ask black boys to change their behavior, when it is the behavior of the adults and institutions that must transform. What I'm doing is coming to school leaders to see if the system can be seen clearly, to confront your own participation in it, and commit the structural shifts required to create environments where Black boys not only survive, but they thrive. Every school has a culture, even the ones that swear they don't. Even the ones that believe they're neutral, welcoming, inclusive for all. Culture isn't a mission statement. It isn't the mural in the foyer that you have. It isn't the tagline on the website or the posters about respect taped to lockers and around the school. Culture is the collection of unspoken rules about who belongs here in the schools, who must adjust, who must translate, and who can simply show up as themselves without penalty. Culture is the air students breathe. It is the invisible contract they learn to obey. And for Black young men in predominantly white schools, that contract is written before they ever take their first step inside that school. They are entering a building designed around assumptions that were never built with them in mind. What this is about the architecture, the blueprint of schooling that shapes how Black young men are seen, treated, disciplined, tracked, and understood. Because if we want to change outcomes, we have to first confront the structure that produces them, and that is inside these buildings. So what are schools really built on? What are they really about? Here's the truth that many educators never really truly want to examine here. The American school system was not designed to be culturally responsive. It was never designed for that. It was not designed for liberation. It was not designed to nurture Black identity, joy, self-determination, or brilliance. We must understand that. Schools were designed to do something else entirely, and I spoke of this before. Its design was to sort people and to simply rank people. And in that, it was to normalize whiteness as the standard for behavior, intelligence, language, and success. And this reproduces that existing social hierarchy. That is the facts. Most educators don't know this history well. They claim they do. But Black young men feel it every single day, because the blueprint still governs every building. Even if you've repainted the walls, it's still there. Even if you've added social emotional learning, even if you've attended a training, even if your school has reformative practices and values of diversity, the blueprint still shapes the rules. And the rules simply say, speak in this tone, don't speak in your own tone. Use this language because this is the language you must use. Wear this hairstyle because your hairstyle is offensive or dangerous. Walk this way. Don't walk the way you choose to walk. Express emotion in this narrow band. Never sound too loud, too passionate, too direct, or too expressive. That becomes a problem, and it gets feared. Do everything in a way that reassures white comfort. This is the cultural operating system of most schools across this country, and it's right here in Fort Collins. Black boys are expected to download it the moment they arrive in your building. This is the hidden curriculum that Black boys learn before any content. Before you teach them their first lesson, before the first assignment is given, before a teacher says, open your book, Black young men are already receiving instruction. Not academic instruction, but cultural instruction on how they are to function. Sociologists call this the hidden curriculum, or the unwritten rules of survival, the coded expectations, the unspoken behavioral demands that are put on young Black men, the social positioning that tells students where they stand. What Black men and young Black men learn early is your body is being watched. Whether you're sitting, moving, stretching, or simply existing, teachers read your body differently. Your emotion is dangerous if misinterpreted. Anger becomes aggression. Frustration becomes a form of defiance. Excitement becomes some sort of disruption. Your intelligence will be questioned as well before it is recognized. Your ideas will need more proof. Your brilliance must be exceptional in order to be believed. Your mistakes are high risk. The margin of error is smaller for you. The consequences, however, become larger. Your culture is optional if it doesn't threaten the norm. Right? Black joy becomes too much energy. He's too excited. We got to keep an eye on him. Black music becomes inappropriate. Black hairstyle policies become disciplinary entries. Black expression becomes something the system tries to regulate consistently. This curriculum is never printed, but it is always taught in every school. And the black young men learn it faster than anything in his textbook because his safety depends on it. And what is the role of the educator in this system? So let me again shift things a little bit. Educators often believe they enter the classroom as neutral actors, ready to teach the curriculum with fairness and equity. But as I've said before, neutrality does not exist in a system that has never been neutral. It has never been neutral. Every teacher brings, every one of you brings a cultural lens, a set of expectations, a social location. You all bring that baggage with you. We bring implicit understanding of what good behavior looks like. A definition of what's smart is shaped by their own schooling or wherever they come from. A tolerance level conditioned by whiteness. A worldview shaped by media, training, and some fake lived experience. None of this makes you bad. It just makes you human. We all have these attributes and mistakes, but it also makes you accountable. Because the behaviors you praise, correct, discipline, reward, or punish are filtered through your cultural lens. And we have to be aware of it, whether you examine it or not. And whether you think you haven't done enough work. Here's what the research proves, because we love research and data. Teachers tend to perceive black boys as older than they are. The adultification bias makes a 12-year-old boy seem menacing, defiant, or too grown. Teachers tend to overpredict negative behavior in black young men. Expectation becomes interpretation, and then interpretation turns into their forms of discipline. Teachers talk differently to young black men. It's always a stricter tone. There's less warmth, less praise, and always there's some suspicion. Teachers under-recommend black boys for advanced coursework. This has been seen all over the country, even when their scores match or exceed their peers. This happens. Teachers give less benefit of the doubt. If a white student makes a mistake, it's immaturity. If a black boy does, it becomes pattern and a label. These aren't accusations. They're patterns across multiple studies, across decades, across states. I don't need to make this up. This is not about a few teachers. This is about a system that trains its educators to see black boys through a distorted lens without ever telling them they are being trained. So what is the consequence? School becomes a hostile territory. You cannot understand discipline disparities without understanding perception first. You cannot understand achievement gaps without understanding expectation gaps first. You cannot understand black boys in white schools without understanding the daily psychological labor required to survive them. It is a constant survival strategy. For black young men, school is often a performance, a negotiation, and some form of a strategic adaptation. They must, what we call, code switch consistently, off and on, turning it off and on like a light switch. They have to shrink, become small, soften your tone, don't be passionate, Don't talk in any way other than the way people choose. Choose words carefully, please do. Avoid drawing negative attention. They have to monitor all their facial expressions. And always they need to apologize quickly. Pretend not to be offended by microaggressions. Oh, it's no big deal that was said to me. And then they have to manage peer isolation. Avoid being too black in a white space. This is not education. This is a form of their survival that they're doing every day. And when survival is the priority, learning becomes secondary. Here's the lie many educators believe. It's a simple one. Black boys just need to behave better, try harder, and make good choices. How many times have we heard that? Here's the truth, though, behind all of that trope. Black boys are navigating a system that interprets their bodies, voices, and identities as problems before they even speak. This isn't a misbehavior issue. This is a misinterpretation issue. This isn't a motivation problem. This is a structural problem. This isn't a kids these days problem, as we like to say. This is an ecosystem problem. Black young men are doing what humans always do, responding to the environment they're placed in. And this environment does not love them. If the environment is biased, the outcomes will reflect the bias, not their potential. This is what I've been trying to address, and many have been trying to address. And I'm going to continue in all of these episodes to dig deep and deeper into how whiteness shapes discipline in the next episode, and how professionalism becomes a weapon, how curriculum erases or distorts black identity, how microaggressions accumulate into trauma because it's done over and over and over and over, how black young men internalize school messages about their worth. This is what we will get, and we will all get. And then we can get into the neuroscience of racialized stress, because folks don't believe that unless it's something they talk about, how stress impacts working memory, motivation, and performance. We're going to deal with that. The psychological cost of a stereotypical threat. Why belonging is an academic intervention. And when you take that away, where are they left? Stranded on an island, confused about who they are, what their place is in this system. What I will tell Puda School District, you will not break my son. You will not break him, because I come from the same tradition where I grew up in a predominantly white city, town, went to a predominantly white school, and I can tell you, I know this experience embedded in my body. It is still there. And my aim is to disrupt it at every level and every day, until we come to some understanding that we all need to do more work. I'll see you for the next episode. I'm your host, Dat Work.